Good evening and welcome. You're watching the Newshour Agenda. I'm Padmaja Joshi. Did Rahul Gandhi ask for foreign intervention to quote-unquote restore the dead democracy of India? At least that's the charge being made against him after his interaction with the Indian Journalists Association in London surfaced. Speaking about the so-called capture of institutions in our country, he wondered why America and Europe were blissfully oblivious to what's an obvious international threat. First, listen in to the main points of consternation for the former Congress president across 3 interactions that he's had in universities, with journalists and with the Indian diaspora in the UK.
How would you react if democracy suddenly disappeared in Europe? Right? You'd be shocked and you'd be like, oh my God, that's a massive blow to democracy. Well, how would you react if something, a structure 3.5 times Europe suddenly went non-democratic? Right? That's happened already. That's not something that is going to happen in the future. That's already happened. The so-called defenders of democracy, which are the United States, European countries, seem to just be oblivious that a huge chunk of the democratic model has come undone, right? Which is a real problem.
That an Indian political leader can give a talk in Cambridge University, Harvard University, but he can't give a talk in India, in a university in India. Right? And the reason is that our government simply does not allow any idea of the opposition, any concept of the opposition to be discussed. You must have noticed one thing, and this isn't the nature of the BJP and the RSS. If you noticed the statement of the foreign minister, he said China is much more powerful than us. See, the China is much more powerful than us. How can I pick a fight with them? Matlab, at the heart of the ideology is cowardice.
Capture of institutions, the death of democracy, international powers must wake up. This exhortation, by the way, overlapped with a time when the world had converged on India, making it practically a linchpin of global politics. At a time when India has the G20 presidency and is set to host the G20 summit. At a time when the world has no qualms in acknowledging India's growing significance and heft in global diplomacy. We have a seat at the table and everyone knows it, acknowledges it. At such a time, when Rahul Gandhi's words are interpreted as seeking foreign intervention in the country, a political face-off is but natural.
मुझे लगता है अपनी नाकामियों को छिपाने के लिए एक सुनियोजित तरीके से विदेशी सरजमीन से राहुल गांधी जी ने भारत को बदनाम करने का ठेका ले रखा है। उनकी भाषा, उनके विचार, उनकी कार्यशैली सब कुछ संदिग्ध सी है।
So Anurag Thakur should be the last person to talk on probity in public life. I think the big problem right now is that the BJP has not even cared to listen to Rahul Gandhi's lecture. Actually insisted that Indian democracy is a public good. What part of that is disrespecting or defaming the country? Mr. Modi, whether it was in Shanghai or Seoul or Abu Dhabi or Oman or Toronto or the US or UK, the kind of stuff that he has said against India, he has actually on Chinese soil said, लोग सोचते थे कि हमने क्या पाप किया हम हिंदुस्तान में पैदा हुए. Mr. Modi should apologize.
Which actually brings us to the central question and something that no one has answered through the day. What really is the point that was being made in that speech? What did Mr. Gandhi mean when he said that America and Europe are blissfully oblivious to the death of democracy in India? What does he expect them to do? Is he asking for foreign intervention in India's affair? Is this also an admission to the fact that now the Congress finds itself unable to take on the BJP on home soil and is making an open appeal for external support?
You're watching the News Hour at 10, debate number 1 on Times Now, Super Prime Time.
Adit Kothari, founding member of Indic Society, joins us along with political analyst Harshvardhan Tripathi, leader of the Congress Qamar Zaman Chaudhary, political analyst Tehseen Poonawala and political analyst Shubhransh Rai. Adit Kothari, first of all, through the day the Congress has seemed to suggest that this is a misreading of what Mr. Gandhi has said. He never said that, America and Europe should land on Indian soil and, start the task of restoring democracy. Do you think it's a misreading?
Absolutely not. I mean, why would you even invoke the debate of US and European intervention in India and, them being oblivious to what is, sort of happening in India, as per what Mr. Gandhi has said. It's absolutely, traumatizing to see a leader of the opposition party come to the UK where he should be celebrating our democracy, he should be celebrating our collective successes. And yet he chooses that platform to essentially defame India in the way that he did. It only points to sedition in our opinion. I mean, it completely contradicts whatever is there from an oath perspective that he has taken as an MP. I think it's a last-ditch battle for him to make a ditch at being relevant in 2024 because after this, if he was to lose this election in 2024, where does he actually fit himself in the Indian polity? So in my opinion, what Mr. Gandhi has done, he's trivialized Indian politics. He's taken it outside the domain of the Indian borders, and he's completely dismantled the homogeneity of Indian politics.
A bit to remain relevant, even criticizing your country is fine. But what exactly, Qamar Zaman Chaudhary, does he expect the European Union to do? That's the part I didn't get. What does he want them to do? To ban India? To put, constraints against India? To stop doing business with India? What does he expect them to do?
Problem with Padmaja and others is the point that when Parliament is the supreme authority in Indian democracy, people from the opposition are never allowed to raise any concerns about what's happening across India, how the minorities are being subjugated, how the people of this country are facing an era of suppression.
We can debate that here in India. You can do it on the Newshour Agenda. It can be done in Parliament. It can be done at Jantar Mantar. It can be done at Bharat Jodo. I come back to my central question. When he says India is already non-democratic, but there is no reaction from Europe and America, the so-called defenders of democracy, what reaction does he want from Europe and America, the so-called defenders? What is the reaction that is expected of them?
You cannot be selectively discussing the entire topic today. Because Rahul Gandhi, whatever he has said in European...
Sir, that was pretty much the thrust of what he said to the Indian Journalists Association. Why should I beat around the bush? I am asking you very simply about the one thing that he has said. Mr. Chaudhary, you cannot decide what is convenient for you and discuss it. It's a very important thing he said. He has said democracy is already dead in India and Europe and America are not reacting. What is the reaction you're expecting? What is the reaction?
Let me cite some instances to you. Do you still feel that democracy is vibrant in India?
Do you want America to intervene in our democracy? I am saying, chalo, maan liya, democracy is dead in India. Do you expect the Indian people to revive it? Or do you expect the United States of America to revive it? Who do you expect? Where are your expectations?
Padmaja, if you just ask me a battery of questions, give me some time to reply also.
I have only one question actually, which I have been banging on about since the beginning. My question is simple and only one line. Only one line question. Mr. Gandhi said, and I quote, Europe quiet because of trade and money, defenders of democracy oblivious, India already non-democratic but no reaction. What is the expected reaction?
Obviously, when the Prime Minister of India goes out to the US and campaigns for Trump, that is not interference in America's internal politics. Is that no? When the Prime Minister criticizes the Congress party and the opposition in international forums...
Sir, I am saying you criticize the BJP. Like I said right at the outset, I am even okay with criticism.
And of course,
my question is not about the... Mr. Chaudhary, my question is not about the criticism. contrary to most people's position, I'm saying it's okay, criticize, it's your right, you're the opposition, you're expected to criticize. My question is, when you exhort the United States and the European Union, what do you want them to do? What the hell can they, what can they do? What do you want them to do?
Padmaja, again you are coming out to the same point. What America and the EU can do? Nobody can do anything with India.
If nobody can do anything, why are you sitting in London and telling them to wake up to India's dead democracy? America is not going to tell us what is wrong with our democracy and what we need to do. In fact, if there is anyone, Mr. Chaudhary, if there is anyone in this country who can revive India's democracy or who can decide what is happening in India's democracy, it is the people of India. Now, you may think they are a bunch of brainwashed bigots and idiots who don't know what's good for them, but the fact of the matter is, the only people who decide what is going on with India's democracy, Shubhransh Rai, and how to revive it, presuming that it's dead, are the Indian people, not Joe Biden, not the European Union, not the United States.
It me 30 seconds to reply. You have not given me any time to reply. You are just...
Sir, we have been bantering for the last 5 minutes actually, not just 30 seconds. Let Shubhransh Rai come in the hope that we address the singular question. Shubhransh Rai. सवाल का जवाब दीजिएगा शुभ्रांश राय.
Capture of institution is equivalent to death of democracy. If you ask anything against Narendra Modi government, ED CBI next day at your home. The live example is Bihar. राबड़ी देवी के घर पे अगले दिन फौज खड़ी थी. Number one. Number two, you have one more question. That is criticizing on country. प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी जब जापान गए थे ना, उन्होंने वहां के प्रधानमंत्री को गीता दिया और साथ में बोला हिंदुस्तान के सेकुलर लोग मुझसे नाराज हो जाएंगे. एज ए प्राइम मिनिस्टर, एज ए हेडिंग द पोस्ट ऑफ प्राइम मिनिस्टर, ये उनके स्टेटमेंट है जापान में. इट इज ऑन रिकॉर्ड. तीसरी इंपॉर्टेंट बात, भारतीय जनता पार्टी के मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट, क्या बीजेपी वालों का ना मानसिक लेवल गिर गया है. नलिन केतली सेइंग राहुल गांधी कैनॉट प्रोड्यूस द फैमिली, कैनॉट प्रोड्यूस द सन. अरे भैया, उनको कहने से पहले नरेंद्र मोदी जी को देख लीजिए. ही इज रन अवे फ्रॉम द फैमिली, लेफ्ट हिज वाइफ. हिस्ट्री इज इन फ्रंट ऑफ यू.
व्हाट इज योर पॉइंट,
नंबर फोर्थ, द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग,
इसका यूएस से क्या लेना देना है?
द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, वी टॉक फॉर द कैम्ब्रिज. मैं बताता हूं मैडम. Most important for the Cambridge. Cambridge invited their veteran, or you can say your ex-student, for their lectureship into the Cambridge. I request and I appeal and I urge, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में इन्वाइट करे अपने स्टूडेंट को, अपने एलुमनी को, into entire political science पे बोलने के लिए. Now the market is open, industry is open, and 100% sure democracy is danger into India. सबको पता है.
चलिए, डेमोक्रेसी, शुभ्रांश जी आपने अभी भी सवाल का जवाब नहीं दिया.
लाइन को छोड़कर
अगर डेमोक्रेसी खत्म भी हो गई है देश में, तो उसका यूरोप क्या कर लेगा? यूरोप आकर के हमारे देश में लोकतंत्र को जिंदा करेगा? What is the expectation? And I still don't understand. Just by the way, you said that Europe and America are oblivious to what is happening. They are not oblivious. Let me just quote to you in the recent past. Of course, everyone knows what Giorgia Meloni has said. But let me quote to you a few other people, leaders of state, hold on a second, in the US and UK and Europe, what they have said. You had the former Danish Prime Minister. He said, I'd like to see India as a strong component in global alliance of democracies. I appreciate Modi's leadership in that respect. Putin, everyone knows, said India attracts general respect from everyone in the world. A lot has been done under Modi's leadership. His concept of do it in India is significant. Donald Trump said Prime Minister Modi underscores limitless promises of this great nation. He is tremendously successful leader of this great Indian Republic. It's not as if the UK, US and Europe are oblivious to what is happening. Maybe the Congress is oblivious to what people of India and people of the world think. Harshvardhan Tripathi, what is expected of the US and UK, and do you see another time? एक second, उनको भी बोलने दीजिए. Do you see another time where on the request of the former Congress president, the US will say, Modi ji
पद्मजा, मुझे लगता है कि जब हम आज की बात कर रहे हैं तो भारत ने दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी त्रासदी में लाइन में लगकर, कतार में लगकर, बिना कतार तोड़े, बिना वीवीआईपी कल्चर के, बिना किसी मंत्री की चिट्ठी के अपनी दवा ले ली, अपनी वैक्सीन ले ली। दुनिया के किसी देश में यह दिखा नहीं। अमेरिका में भी बाकायदा इसके लिए मारपीट हुई, अलग अलग गवर्नर्स ने अलग अलग नियम बनाए, और भारत जिसको यूनियन ऑफ स्टेट्स बताकर विभाजित करने पर आमादा है राहुल गांधी, वहां देश के किसी राज्य के किसी व्यक्ति ने केंद्र सरकार से झगड़ा नहीं किया। दुनिया में किसी देश में ऐसा नहीं है जहां जनता इस तरह से एक्सट्रीम कंडीशंस में भी जाकर वोट करती है, और वोट करके अब क्या हुआ कि जो मिली जुली सरकारें होती थी, जो फ्रैक्चर्ड मैंडेट आता था, अब क्लियर कट मैंडेट देश की जनता दे रही है। यानी उनकी डेमोक्रेटिक जो वैल्यूज हैं उसमें उनकी आस्था बढ़ी है। नेता के तौर पर नरेंद्र मोदी दो तरह से ही जाने जा सकते हैं। एक ही देश में उनको वोट दे रहे हैं क्या लोग, तो जनता वोट कर रही है। जनता ने वोट किया 14 साल करीब गुजरात में, और अभी 10 साल होने जा रहा है भारत में, यानी केंद्र की सत्ता में। फिर इंटरनेशनल फोरम्स पे क्या है, क्लाइमेट चेंज, एनवायरमेंट, जो टेररिज्म, इन सब को लेकर भारत की तरफ दुनिया देख रही है। एक डेमोक्रेटिक मॉडल के तौर पर भारत की साख बढ़ी है। और अगर हम ये मान लें कि राहुल गांधी लोकतंत्र नहीं देख पा रहे हैं, तो क्या ये वजह है कि वो अमेठी से चुनाव हार गए, जनता ने हरा दिया, वायनाड जाना पड़ा, तो उनको लग रहा है डेमोक्रेसी खत्म हो गई? क्या उनको लग रहा है कि 2019 में दोबारा है, 24 में तीसरी बार आ जाएंगे, तो इसलिए डेमोक्रेसी खत्म हो गई? और अगर ये सब हो भी गया तो शायद अब वो वक्त नहीं है। राहुल गांधी जी को ये ध्यान में रखना चाहिए कि अब कोई दुनिया की स्पाई एजेंसी, कोई दुनिया की मिलिट्री, कोई डिफेंस फोर्स भारत को अब कुछ मैनिपुलेट नहीं कर सकती है। आपको अगर लंदन, कैम्ब्रिज या यूरोपियन यूनियन का टूर करके करना है, तो आप हो सकता है कुछ समय वहां के न्यूज़पेपर्स में नरेंद्र मोदी से ज्यादा हेडलाइंस ले सकते हैं, लेकिन देश के भीतर आपकी साख बहुत खतरे में है, बहुत निचले स्तर पर है। यह व्यवहार बिल्कुल ठीक नहीं।
इज दिस एन एडमिशन, तहसीन पूनावाला, दैट द कांग्रेस इज अनेबल टू टेक ऑन मिस्टर मोदी, सो इज सीकिंग सम reinforcements strangely from the US and UK and Europe?
I'll answer your question very, very specifically, but I object to the very strong language obviously used by the BJP loony about Mr. Gandhi, but also on this show, we should not make personal comments about people's marital life. Let's keep our debate civil. And Padmaja Joshi, I don't like that, and I don't like to be a part of shows. So let's not make personal comments about people's personal lives. He's our Prime Minister. Let's come to the point. I want to answer your question very specifically. Your question is, what should Europe and America do if what Mr. Gandhi is saying is true? So for that, let me just take 20 seconds uninterrupted of who Mr. Gandhi is. His grandmother, when she went to war with Pakistan, America President Nixon said, I'm sending the 7th fleet. His grandmother said, send the 8th fleet. His father, both martyrs for this country, when China said Arunachal is a part of our country, he declared it a state and put the Indian army there. The Chinese army, in the backtracking, lost the most amount of army men they've ever lost in their history. And his grandmother laid the Chinese army on the floor. The Prime Minister, this current Prime Minister, does not have the guts to name China. That is Rahul Gandhi. He comes from that family. That's his pedigree. There is never a wrong place to say the right thing. If people are embarrassed, it should be the embarrassment that is caused by the Prime Minister when he, as Prime Minister, said abroad that people were embarrassed to be Indians prior to him being Prime Minister.
I didn't understand the point that you made at all. You were saying that Indira Gandhi asked for US's intervention against China.
No, she didn't.
How is that the same as Rahul Gandhi asking for America's intervention against an Indian Prime Minister?
You didn't understand. You didn't understand.
What are we saying here? That we expect America to come here and create a coup against a democratically elected government?
Wow, Padmaja, that's exactly what I didn't say. I said exactly the opposite. I'm sorry you didn't understand, so let me repeat. When India went to war against Pakistan, President Nixon called up Indira Gandhi to threaten her and said, I'm sending the 7th fleet. Her response to him was, send the 8th fleet, I am going to war. She didn't bow down to President Nixon.
Exactly, which is all the more horrifying that Indira Gandhi did not bow in front of the United States or anyone else. But her grandson seems to think, and by the way, can I please also point out, since you are saying that Indira Gandhi was our Prime Minister who did not take any rubbish from anyone. Mr. Gandhi did not say. Mr. Gandhi did not say that the defender of democracy is India. He said Europe and America are defenders of democracy. Says who?
No.
Why did he announce them the defenders? We are the defenders of democracy. We are the largest democracy in the world.
But he also said that Indian democracy is a public good and a global necessity. And therefore he said it must only be strengthened. It must only be strengthened.
And which is why democracy is alive and kicking. Democracy is alive and kicking, Tehseen. Who said that America is the defender of democracy?
In the Prime Minister. Hypocrisy is alive and kicking. The Prime Minister said people were embarrassed before he was Prime Minister. I agree with you, it's alive and kicking. But let me just, one point. What did Mr. Gandhi end his speech with? Mr. Gandhi ends his speech with very important words. He says, India, come to India. This is the land that I love. This is the land that I will protect and I will always be there.
Minus Modi. But I will love India only when Modi is gone.
He never said that. Show me a quote of him saying that.
Pretty much, that is the gist. Sir, when you are saying, hold on a second. You say, I love India, but democracy is not dying. Democracy is dead. Okay, so Tehseen Poonawalla, when you say that India is a land where democracy is dead, you essentially make it seem like we are some kind of banana republic. You cannot love a country and also say that it's a banana republic and a dead democracy. What kind of, you can't say that I love my house, but it's a hellhole. I love my house, it's a hellhole.
I'll answer that in 10 seconds before you get in the other speaker. Just 10 seconds. So by that logic, and I extend your logic further, let's accept your logic. What the Prime Minister said is nobody was proud to be Indian before he became Prime Minister is also wrong. Criticize him. So Padmaja was not proud to be Indian before 2014. He's now removing Kuda of 60 years. Criticize him.
Adit Kothari
said also wrong.
Adit Kothari, like begets like. Adit Kothari.
Adit, you're on mute.
You're muted. Adit, please.
Adit, you're muted.
Thanks, Tessie. I was going to say, the Indian diaspora certainly feels a lot more pride over the last 9 years. There is not an iota of doubt. You can look at the ratings. It's right in front of you. The way the Indian diaspora is now looked at internationally, it feels a sense of pride. But, Tehseen, to your point, where I wanted to take this debate to is it's become fashionable for the sort of intelligentsia to, abuse and insult your own country, insult the civilizational value of your country, and also curse your prime minister to be, seen as this liberal and secular, sort of cabal. What Mr. Rahul Gandhi has done is, he's essentially proving to be a duplicit and a hypocrite by using international platform to essentially defame India and its democratic values, and then come back to stay in a lutyens bungalow that is provided to him by the same very state that he's actually defaming. So what is he essentially trying to prove here? The point is, you want to have a debate about the Indian democracy, do it, but do it in your land. When you are going abroad, like the elderly gentleman at the Taj Hotel in London pointed out, when Mrs. Indira Gandhi came to London after being jailed by Morarji Desai and then being released, on a visit to London, she said, I will not discuss Indian politics in London. In London, I will only discuss the brand India. So that should be the modus operandi of any politician, be it from whatever background they come from.
In fact, right now, there seems to be a disconnect. Just a second. There seems to be a disconnect, Kamar Zaman Chaudhary, not just between what Indian voter is thinking and what Mr. Gandhi is thinking, but even what the world is thinking and what Mr. Gandhi is thinking. Who is he trying to get a reaction from? From the United States. Now, the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, was in India 3 days ago. Here is what he said about this horrible, horrible dead democracy called India. He says, the great power of Quad is that you have 4 like-minded countries united in their basic values. Now, you might think that India is this banana republic, which is, consigned to the dustbin of history, but the United States still thinks that we are a country which shares common values. What do you expect them to do against us?
Can I reply now, Padmaja?
Yes, go on, Mr. Chaudhary.
Concerned about what US or EU thinks. As an Indian, what I think about this BJP government, that I can explain to you. And my leader, Rahul Gandhi, is very right in when he says that the world needs to look at Indian democracy and make the course correction right now. Otherwise, it will be very late.
But how will the world make a course correction, sir? That is the basic point I'm trying to understand. Is there Harshvardhan Trivedi a complete lack of connect. When even Mr. Chaudhary is saying that the world needs to look at India and somehow whip it into shape. Don't we have enough institutions in India to do that?
पद्मजा, असली मुश्किल यही है कि भारत के जो भी संस्थान हैं, इंस्टीट्यूशंस हैं, उनको दुनिया देख रही है कि वो किस तरह से अपनी जिम्मेदारी निभा रहे हैं। भारत के चुनाव आयोग को दुनिया के दूसरे देश अपने यहां के चुनाव आयोग बहुत आदर्श तरीके से कराने के लिए बुलाते हैं। खुद भारत में अलग अलग राज्यों में चुनाव करते वक्त भारतीय जनता पार्टी की हार के बाद भी अगर चुनाव आयोग संस्था पर हमला किया जाता है तो इससे समझा जा सकता है। लेकिन मेरी समस्या सिर्फ एक है। मेरी समस्या यह है कि आप बिल्कुल जो कहना है वो कहिए, लेकिन आप मैंडेट का अपमान करना बंद कीजिए। आप दुनिया की ये मैं कह रहा हूं कि आप भारत को गलत तरीके से देख रहे हैं। अब कोई यूएसए, यूके, यूरोपीय यूनियन के देश, उनकी इतनी हैसियत नहीं है कि वो भारत को अपने लिहाज से मैनिपुलेट करेंगे। मुझे लगता है कि राहुल गांधी शायद पहले के समय में जी रहे हैं। वो थोड़ा सा टाइम मशीन में पीछे चले गए। और इससे बड़ी लोकतंत्र की इससे बड़ी खूबसूरती क्या होगी, इससे बड़ा प्रमाण क्या होगा कि राहुल गांधी को ये देश इस तरह से बर्दाश्त कर रहा है विपक्ष के नेता के तौर पर। और जब मैं बर्दाश्त शब्द कह रहा हूं तो आप सोचिए कि जो आदमी चुनाव जहां से लड़ता रहा उस कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी को विकास के हर पैमाने पर पीछे छोड़ गया, और वो आदमी कह रहा है कि डेमोक्रेसी डेड हो गई है, लोकतंत्र खत्म हो गया है, चारों तरफ कोहराम मचा हुआ है। वो आदमी कहता है कि 2-3 अच्छी स्कीम होंगी तो क्या हो गया, कुछ लोगों को सिलेंडर मिल गया, कुछ लोगों को काम, यानी डेवलपमेंट के काम अगर हो गए तो उससे क्या हो गया। फिर वो कहते हैं कि नहीं हिंदू, मुस्लिम, सिख, ईसाई, एक सिख को खोजा, कहा कि तुम खड़े हो जाओ। इसका मतलब क्या है? वो फॉल्ट लाइंस को दुनिया के सामने दिखाना चाह रहे हैं, भारत की डेमोक्रेसी को कमजोर करके केओस करना चाह रहे हैं। सत्ता चाहिए, इसके लिए इतना नीचे जाएंगे, ये अकल्पनीय था, ये ठीक नहीं।
Well, India for good reason has been called an argumentative country. It may even be a flawed democracy, but it has enough institutions and checks and balances in place that every time any of those flaws emerge, those fault lines emerge, India itself does enough to fix them. And on that note, let me actually end with a little bit of a fact check, because among the many examples that Mr. Gandhi gave to illustrate how democracy is dead in our country, he said that it's wonderful that I can speak at Cambridge, but in India, I can't speak in any college. Since 2014, in 2019, Mr. Gandhi interacted with students at Stella Maris College. Let me play out that clip now. Then he went to JNU in 2016. He went to St. Xavier's College on the 28th of February 2021. He went in 2015 to Mount Carmel College. 2,000 students were present at that time. 2021, he went and showed Aikido in a Kerala college. 2021, he went to St. Xavier's College. And in 2022, he went to Aluva UC College in Kerala. So in our democracy, there are many colleges. They welcome Mr. Gandhi. They may agree or disagree, but it's a beautiful argumentative democracy for the very same reason. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining me.